This was a tremendous experience for me because old Mama came down off of that pedestal. Isn't it sort of sickening to find college students 18, 20, 25? Yes, I've met some people who were 60 or 70 for whom Mama had never gotten down off the pedestal at all. And we were still suckling at her right bosom, and or the cord was still, what Mama said was right, must be right, and what Mama said I ought to do, hell, I better do it, or I guess the boogeyman gets you if you don't do what Mama tells you to do or something. But anyway, Mama collapsed on the pedestal, but I wasn't still free from Mama. I smoked for a long time before I dared to, well, that's a big lie. Mama knew I smoked, but she'd always told us she was a very neurotic woman. At times, she used to get up on Monday morning with a white thing or a towel. She had migraine headaches, and when Mama showed up with the towel around her head, brother, we hopped around that house because Mama was the kind of a woman that she could go around with that towel on there for a week if things didn't go the way Mama wanted. How did your Mama? Mama knew I smoked, but she told us boys it'd simply kill her if she ever knew we smoked. And so I guess Mama must have been dead because she knew we smoked. But we went all around pretending Mama. I was riding in a car one time with Mama, and I wanted a cigarette like nobody's business. I was almost up to the chain smoking stage, I guess, but then, and there was old Mama riding with me. And for a nickel, I'd have had her out to walk, so I could get my cigarette. Well, finally I say, now, Mama, you're not as young as you used to be, and I'm getting along myself here. We may not either one of it. Well, let's just quit pretending. I got some cigarettes over there, and that you just hand them over. Well, it was a tremendous day in a tremendous day in Mama's life. Mama, who had been dead, he became alive. And Joe, who had been dead, became alive too. To be a moral son, you see what that means. And then for parents, well, I won't go on into this very much. You can see what I'm having a wonderful time with Joey. Did I tell you about Joey becoming a teenager? Huh? He has become. I first discovered. Well, he's one day he's a grown-up fellow, my peer, and he likes it. And the next day he's a little tiny baby that hates the fact that he finds himself. The next day he's a grown-up man who despises that he has to be. And the next day he's a little tiny baby that just delights in it. He'll even come and sit on my lap and cuddle with me. He wouldn't let me do that for years. He just simply, it's a tremendous experience for it. And now, here's a situation in his life, and I've discovered I've had to stand out from that and take an attitude for it and embrace. You take my little boy. He's been having some trouble in school. He sees things and he doesn't read them right, and either he's got something crossed up here, or else the neuroses of his mama and papa have really pressed in on this little boy. Well, I came down one morning and I look at him across the room, and maybe he's just dull, Well, I couldn't face the fact that I'd have a... standing, receiving. This is the covenant is, it make any difference whether your mama is a harlot, she's your mother. It make a difference whether your boy is this or that, or he's your boy. And he's your boy not because he's your boy, but because you dare to make a covenant to be this one's father. I remember another sister of mine who, well, it's funny, I have 4 sisters. The only one of them I think was really made for motherhood, and it was this one. Her name's Elizabeth. And she married a chemist at DuPont, and when he was a little boy back in the backwoods of Ohio on a farm, he had the mumps. They went down on him, and his mama didn't know what to do. Anyway, he was sterile. And so here she didn't know this. She just made the bit, well, it didn't have any children. A great problem, a great tragedy in her life. And then she decided she'd adopt them. Had great problems about adopting them. And I remember one time sitting up in her bedroom with her and trying to explain that to be a mother is not to be a natural. Any old sow, he can bear children. To be a mother is to enter into a covenantal relationship, a certain kind with another human being. And she adopted two very, very wonderful children. And what a mother. And what a mother. This is a part of the ceremony also. And then the whole ceremony is before God. And what do you mean before God here? That when I dare to make covenantal relationships and stand responsible for them, I am standing before the ground of being in itself. I am making certain promises before the great mysterious one who gives me this situation into which I inject myself with. And the whole ceremony from beginning to end is standing before this. To default. Now mark you, I do not mean that marriage is closed. Marriage is open-ended, and if it isn't, it can never be a moral covenant. Wherever divorce is not a possibility, you don't even know what you're talking about when you talk about a moral covenant. I don't mean this. But you never default on the covenant, save you default on who you are in this world, which is to say you default on being itself, or you default before God. And so in this ceremony, this is demonstrated where these two are finally bound together in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or before being in itself. And then after that, the minister gives these two permission to kiss. And the kiss is the symbol of the first sex act, which this sex act, nobody has a right to take. Nobody has a right to take. You're given this right, and the right is given to you by this covenantal right. The kiss is the sign of the first sex act. Now, it seems to me that every covenantal relationship in life is of this type. I enter into my nation. I was born a citizen of the United States of America. To be a free person is to take upon myself the responsibility of being this, so that I say, I am my nation, I am its glory, I am its sin. In my work, in entering into the order of education, where I choose to be a rational creature, all covenants are the same. And one thing, and then I will stop. I'll touch right and good without the history. When one says all that is good before this last final reality, this gets its concreteness for me in terms of moral covenants. In other words, my goods in life are those things to which I relate myself in a covenantal relationship. This is the concretion of my goods. So that in a moral covenant, I know what I mean by my good, concretely. Now, potentially, all beings and all relationships are good. This gets concretized in a moral covenant. And therefore, all of our moral covenants are relative. They're relative before this last reality. But they are our goods as we've mixed our being with it. And then the question of right for me is the question of what is the befitting thing to do in the light of this relationship. What is the befitting thing to do? This is the good. The right is always what is the befitting thing to do in the light of this relationship. I make a covenant with Lynn. Here is my good. Here is my end, if you like. Always relative in the concrete. And the right is what is the befitting act in the light of this good. And here, my critical intelligence must operate. Nobody can finally tell me, use any kind of advice or case studies, but finally I must decide, and I alone, what the befitting thing is, what the right thing is. And then I live with the consequences of it. And so in all of my relationships to life, I get my good in the free decision to relate myself here rather than here. And I get my right by raising the question of what is the befitting thing in terms of this relationship. If I belong to the Christian Faith and Life community, I enter into a moral covenant for 1 year with a bunch of old so-and-sos around here. And this is my good if I know what it means to be a person. And the right is what is the befitting thing in terms of this decision I've made. What is the befitting thing? Not what do I want, what would I like, what would I love, what do I approve of. That's not the question. Well, what is the befitting thing? Supposing that you and I decide, as we have decided, to be friends. Here's our good. Here's our good. And what's the befitting thing in terms of our friendship? This, I say to you, is the way the man of faith enters into the givenness of the social structures of life, and it's dramatized in the marriage ceremony of the Christian church. I will stop here. We have a moment or two for questions.